Hi guys, it's George Hewitt here. Welcome to the Supercoach Swordplay podcast.
G'day guys, welcome back for 2026. We are back. The Supercoach Swordplay podcast is here. It is season 6, episode 1, and I am joined by my good brother Janath. It's been a minute, mate. How are things? How's the team looking?
Doing well, mate. Glad to be back on. My voice a bit croaky. Came back from camp a couple of days ago now, so getting back into the swing of things, but very, very excited to be on. Team is looking okay. Couple of changes here and there, nothing too set in stone. Looking forward to seeing how the preseason shapes out.
Very, very nice. Now, Spillsy and Rossco can't join us for this potty, but they will be with us many, many times throughout the year. But it's preseason, mate. There's a lot of news floating around now. Since Supercoach has been open to the public, a lot more interest around the game. So we thought we better come out with our first preseason potty for the year. It has been a very, very busy time. As I said, you've been on camp. I've been in the middle of a big move. But this, what you see on screen, my brother, has been a massive, massive preseason project.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And we've gone back to back with our season guides here. What do you say? It's the number one preseason resource. We have a whole video talking about sort of what's included. You can see all the content creators here. We've even got a special series, which we're going to be putting out on the Supercoach Swordplay channel as well, about some Supercoach royalty. We won't give too much away, but it's going to be a 3-part series, which you guys will be tuning in for. It'll be part of the season guide as well. And also for those game day squad players, we got a special bonus component to that guide. And we're also partnered with GDS to give away 3 free 9-player common packs. So $20 worth of packs with every season guide order. Whether you play GDS or not, you can sign up simply to use those pack codes as well.
Hang on. So the guide's $20.
Yes.
But if you purchase the guide,
yes,
you get $20 worth of free cards.
You got it.
Deal
exactly
of the century, brother. Deal of the century. If you aren't into GDS yet, what a way to actually start to build up your squad and kick off for the 2026 season. That is absolutely amazing, brother. And you can see a range of different content creators that we've got here to put this together with us. It's a huge collaborative project and your absolute Supercoach preseason Bible. So we do have pre-orders up available at the moment. We'll get into those details. If you're interested, head to the website. We've got a rugby jumper bundle as well as the guide that you can purchase there, as well as a beanie bundle. Obviously, buying in bulk, you get a bit of a discount there, which everyone always wants. And Janath, advertisement opportunities, my friend. Tell us about this.
Yes, as we mentioned on the standalone video as well, we're going to introduce some advertisement opportunities. If you guys have a product, a website, whatever, a business that you guys want to promote, you can use your season guide as a platform to do that. There's 2 tiers of advertisements. The tier 1 being a full page advertisement. You get the free copy of the Supercoach Swordplay season guide in both of the tiers. But if you get a tier 1, you also get a weekly advertisement in DR stock market videos as well. Whereas with the tier 2 there, you get a half-page advertisement. So if you have any of those queries, we'll put our email down in the YouTube description as well, and you guys can send through any opportunities. I know a couple of people have already reached out, so thank you guys. And if there's anyone else that wants to do so, feel free to check us out.
Beautiful. Very special shout out to our friend Flitty as well. So, guys, if you do want to pre-order, you can use the promo code Swordplay to get 10% off. Again, we will have the link in the description. Now, Open League for 2026. The housekeeping is almost over, but we want as many people as possible to come and take on the Swordplay crew in the Open League. So the code that you need is 581479. The more the merrier with that one there. And just a quick plug as well, I'm running another charity league. This one is a $50 open charity league for Headspace. You can see the prize details there. If you are interested, email me at supercoachwithdr@outlook.com and I'll send through all the details that you need. All right, brother, time to get right into this. Let's start talking about some of the players that we can select in 2026. What we're going to start off by doing is take a look at some your own players at this stage of the season. Now, things could change. Players' ownership will rise up and down as news comes through, and we find out about what teams are planning to do with structures and all the rest. But we've got the top 10 defenders here in regards to ownership.
Yes, I think just a very quick disclaimer, this is excluding the rookies. So your Josh Lindsay, Jice Rong, Sam Grill, those types aren't in here. You'd probably pick them if they play, sort of thing. On Rosie, I think those top two, I've got them in at the moment. There, in fact, I've got the top 5 in at the moment, which is with Coleman probably the one that's most on the outer for me. But with Rosie and Naz, I feel like that's a really strong D1, D2. Rosie, obviously, you got the really friendly fixture run for Port Adelaide, playing basically the best matchup that you can have every single week moving forward. So if I was to just bring up their fixture here, you start up with Essendon, West Coast, Port Richmond, St Kilda, and North Melbourne. So to start off with, so bang, bang, bang. If he plays midfield, whether he plays in defence, I'm not too worried. Obviously, I probably prefer him in defence. And then the same goes for Naz. You probably prefer him in defence, but if he plays the midfield, he should get the ball regardless. And it doesn't surprise me that both of them are over 50% owned, to be honest. What about for you, mate?
Absolutely agree. They're both currently in my side. Rosie's probably the one that I have been experimenting with in and out just to see how things look like. I even put him in midfield for a couple of days there just to try to play around with some structures. But at this stage, it's going to be hard for me not to select both those two blokes. And I think the ownership is probably right where it should be at this stage. Kitty as well, there's been a little bit of talk that it might be hard to squeeze him in to our defensive line. So could we play a little bit of half forward, possibly even on a wing? I'm not too sure, but I think at the price, he should still score well enough for him to be a successful pick if he's actually out on the park and available. The next 3 are really interesting picks. Mid prices. Yeah. Now, I did put a video out yesterday on the 2025 data from some of our popular mid prices, the goats of the game, like your Harry Perrimans, your Jaden Shorts, and these sort of fellas, mate. So always fraught with danger, but they are popular for a reason and for different reasons. I think with McKercher, we look at that potential role coming off half back. We look at his post-average buy from last year. With Bergman, it's all about potential role again, playing in the midfield. And you just mentioned it with Rosie. What really attracts me to the Bergman pick potentially early is that really nice fixture. So playing in the midfield against some of these weaker teams, could we see some nice ceiling scores early, which gives him a nice little boost? And then, hey, if you want to, you can move him on a little bit earlier than others if you want. And then we've got Nick Newman, the classic Fulham premium type that has runs on the board, has scored well in the past for a whole season, unlike the 2 above him, but obviously comes with some durability concerns. So we do have some mid-price slides coming up, but what are your thoughts on these 3? Have all 3 entered your side at some stage during the season, mate?
Yes, 100%. And I guess it's interesting to think about these 3 players as just as a community, how much we want to go for the next big thing. And I think the dichotomy around these 3 is the perfect example of that. You've got Newman, who's previously gone 100 and 102. But I feel like he's got the least buzz around him compared to the other 2 because of what they could be, rather than saying we already have seen it from Newman. And it's very interesting. And I'm not to say that either approach is the wrong approach or the correct approach. But I think Newman at 439K, if he's at 14.8% ownership to start the season, I can see him being a smash pick because he's arguably our most play at the Blues, like an important play at the Blues. We missed him so much last year. Bergman is probably the one that I think is most, I guess it's wrong. If you see McKercher starting halfback, I can't see him going below 105. Like that's simply how I see it. Whereas with Bergman, the problem is he could start in the midfield, and every single time Port Adelaide had an injury last year in defence, Bergman was the one going back, regardless of how he looked in the midfield. And that's where the in-game adjustments is what's fraught with danger. Whereas with McKercher, you know he's either playing off halfback for the whole game or he's playing somewhere else. And you can make that adjustment accordingly. But with Bergman, if you have an injury in the first 10 minutes, and that's why I'm sort of grappling with is that a risk I want to take on? If Port Adelaide have an injury in defence, then what happens to Bergman? He can't score as well in defence as he can in the midfield. So probably end up going Newman and McKercher structure-wise, but right now have McKercher and Bergman in.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And I think that's another thing that's a tick for Newman is role clarity. You know where he's going to play. Unlike Bergman, as you said, he could fill a spot down back if things change. Even McKercher, I think a lot of us got a little bit of a scare when news came out that he was playing in the midfield and that match sim and training through the middle as well. I much prefer him as obviously a running defender, McKercher distributing off half back. So for role clarity, I'd have Newman in front of both McKercher and Bergman. But I suppose for ceiling, I think McKercher may have that if he continues with the role. But yeah, all three, I can absolutely see the interest because all three have been in and out of my side as well. Now, this is where we come to the next pick, Jordan Clark. The way I would describe Clark is a safe type pick. And I must admit, in the last 2 to 3 days, he has actually entered my side. Reason being, after doing this research about some of these mid-price defenders from last year, I thought, am I going too hard with these mid-prices here? Should I drop one of a Bergman or a McKercher and bring in more of a safer commodity like a Jordan Clark? You're paying up a little bit more. But what do you think about him? Did you see the upside with Clark, or do you view him as a pick that's got a good buy, some good runs on the board, and you're most likely paying for what you're going to get?
Yeah, I think that's the case. Even last year, Clark never really went up too much in price, but also didn't go down too much in price. With Judd McVean, I think Damo from the Footy Mailbag was mentioning how he could free up Clark a bit more to take more responsibility. But until Luke Ryan's role sort of dissipates entirely, I just don't think that Clark can go to that next level like a Rosie or a Naz sort of player. And even a McKercher at his full potential. So with Clark, I think he's a good pick at 568. He's safe as houses, doesn't have an early buy. Like, all of these work in his favor. It's just that you're probably not going to get the 110 every week that you might from other players around, possibly even around this price. Like a Lockie Ash, for instance, he's not on this list. And it surprised me, even a Jack Sinclair, they're both below 5% owned. And it's really surprising seeing how we're really going for those breakout players. And even like a Jordan Clark against an Ash, we saw Ash have I think the most tons, apart from Hugh McCluggage, all last year. But to not see him in the top 10 defenders at all is really interesting to see. But I think there's definitely, without the early buy, definitely means to go Jordan Clark early.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you bring up the buys, and we'll finish off the potty taking a look at the buys a little bit later on. But given the fact that Naz is so highly owned, and then you've also got your Sinclair and the two GWS boys, is that potentially playing into people's minds? The fact that over 50% of the competition currently see Naz as a lock, it then puts the Sinclairs and the Whitfields maybe down the pecking order slightly. I'm not too sure, but you do have Lockie Whitfield there, who again is a tried and true premium, the sort of bloke that can step on a pebble on the way to training, roll an ankle and miss a couple of weeks. He's that sort of player. But do you think his ownership at just under 10% is probably fair and reasonable where it should be at the moment, mate?
Yeah, and I think there was a time last year where we were really hot on Lockie Whitfield, but as the season came closer and closer, the community sort of went away from it. And I don't think anything's really changed. Even with Lockie Ash there, he still averaged. He was going to be the D2 if it wasn't for the concussion game. You take that out, and he's the D2 behind Naziah. Like, that's just how it all sort of panned out. But I think there is some meat on the bone, as you'd like to say, mate. Maybe it's 10, 15K off his starting price, but that still means that he could present some value if he can play the same way. I think GWS trust the ball more in Whitfield's hand than they do in Ash's hands as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got currently in my top 6 top averaging defenders for the year in my personal rankings. 4 of these blokes come from St Kilda and GWS, so they're a very relevant couple of sides when it does come to defenders, mate. The next one, this is a really interesting pick.
Yes.
News in the preseason that he's been one of West Coast's best performing midfielders. It's Tommy McCarthy, who was an absolute gift from the Supercoach gods last year in our backlines. But look at his price, over 500K this year, and currently 6.1% of sides are currently locking him in. He's got a decent buy. We know he's got good talent and good disposal. We haven't seen him in this role in game. What are your thoughts here at 6.1%?
Yeah, this is one of those plays where you don't really know what to expect, I'd say. Because with McCarthy, came on the scene last year and the risk was so low at what he would have started 99K, right? But now you're paying 505K for him. And you've seen players that can break it. I think Nick Dacos in his second season was around this price and he outperformed it. But not many players are Nick Dacos or Harry Sheasel. So whether McCarthy can take the next step up with the presence of Yo, with Willem Dersman in there, I want to see it before getting on him. But he's a good enough player. He's a mature age player. I just think that I'd prefer to either go down to a Newman, Bergman, McKirch type or go up to a Rosie, Whitfield, Clark, Ash type than be stuck in the middle at 505K.
I agree with you. I think if he was at a similar price to your Kirch, your Bergs, then he'd definitely be more in the conversation, in the discussion for me personally. But look, who knows? Great role, and they need something to happen in that midfield, don't they? And number 10 on the list here, mate, is my boy Jasper Fletcher. He's at 5.5%. It's an interesting one. He's got all the talent in the world. I've spoken so much about Jasper Fletcher. I truly believe that once Harris falls off the perch, he's going to be our next captain. We just rate him extremely highly at the Lions. But with your Zorkos, your Pepsi Max Kings, your Fletcher, still who knows what's happening with Kitty. I just don't know if there's going to be enough points there for him to really break out to compete with some of the other big names that we've got to select from this year. It's not a talent type thing. It's more how much the pie will he actually receive. And he's probably one of the players that if we really do want to squeeze Kitty down back, that he's got the abilities to probably be an all-Australian type wingman, play in the midfield, play at half forward. He's an extremely versatile type player. So absolutely love him, but I don't know if this year's going to be his year. Do you have any thoughts yourself on Jasp?
Yeah, probably need to wait and see in preseason. And this is the tough part because in preseason you have those outside ball users get more off the ball than they normally would in a home and away game. But at least we'll get to see it in round 0 as well. And I think the problem for Supercoach is banking on which of Wilmot, Fletcher and Zorko, and even Kitty will be the one that gets the bulk points, because I feel like one of them will at least go off every week. It's just to predict that Fletcher can do it for a 10-week stretch every single week is probably too far of a stretch right now. But as soon as Zorko retires and one of those options is eliminated, then he becomes a serious option.
That's a great point. If Zorko's out of the side, all these players' stocks really do start to rise because there will be a lot more meat on the bone.
Even more for a team like Brisbane that's run and gun transition sort of thing. The new last disposal rule, like Fletcher, Wilmot, I'm not sure about Kitty just yet, but these are the blokes that are going to be tasked with bringing that ball back in, getting those extra kicks per game. And I can see that this floor becomes elevated because of that. But if their floor is an 85, but their ceiling is a 95, like that's not the type of play you really want to be starting. I guess it could be for some coaches, but probably not for me.
Potentially some nice draft value if you're a drafter. We're obviously the classic variety around here,
or
mate.
Game day squad investment as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The great Jurg.
Yeah.
Oh, he looked after me.
Yeah.
Nice little Sheasel package that we organised there together. So he's a great man, is Jurg. Shout out to you, mate.
Very quickly as well, one defender that wasn't there, Josh Dacos. Now, if he's going to be Collingwood's second midfielder, at 5% owned, I think he's about 550K. I'm just going to bring that one up. 525K. Now, if you're comparing Josh Dacos against Tom McCarthy, I think I'd prefer to go Josh Dacos even with the earlier buy. Just because he had that ceiling game against Gold Coast, and it probably murkies the water because it looks like such an outlier. But this was the first season he played as a halfback. But I think that apprenticeship was to put him into the midfield this year, where Collingwood desperately lack. So another watching preseason, but at 525K, I think he could be one that sort of gets away from coaches at the start because they're not paying too much attention to anyone at Collingwood apart from Nick.
Interesting. And could you imagine those two in the middle together? Tell me they won't look for each other at every possible opportunity just to pad the stats a little bit. So a very, very good call there, mates. Maybe someone that people are sleeping on at the moment. But let's get into the midfield here. Now, you'll see that it's a little bit skewed because we've got your Sheezels, your Rosies, who aren't actually pure midfielders. I couldn't filter by pure midfielders. So we might leave the Sheezels discussion to the forward line and head straight to Hayden Young, who you see on the screen here, mate. So currently owns by 55.4% of the competition. Do you think this is fair and reasonable where it needs to be at the moment? Or are we some people undervaluing? Should it be closer to your 70%?
This may be a hot take. It may not be. But if Hayden Young has no injury interrupted sessions or whatever throughout preseason, he's 100% lock in my side. I think he has the potential to be a 600k guy. Like, that's just what he is in terms of the type of play he is, what he can do when he's healthy. And I think it's one of those plays where no buy, you just take the punt on him because so many others will be. But when you get a play like that, less than 400k, that could be a keep at the end of the season, you just have to jump on. And I think that's where 55% of coaches are at the moment. What do you think?
Well, I'll give you 3 letters here. It's PPM, points per minute. And I saw this, I think it was the great Dossie that put a post out. His points per minute were more than someone like a Tristan Sherry, for example. This guy is crazy. When he's actually fit and available, he can score through the roof. Durability is obviously the main concern, but one piece of advice I do give to people when we're looking at players with questionable durability is safety in numbers as well. And I think if you look at that ownership, over 50% of the competition, if he goes down, over half the competition is going down with you as well. But I think his upside is just way too hard to ignore. Think back to when this guy was actually fit. He's just an absolute monster. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of the pick and just has not left my side. And it's the same as Zach Butters. Now, this is a hot take from me. To start the season, he's got to be in 80+% of sides with his opening run. You look at the Bont and his price, and we'll get to him down the bottom, 706,000. You're saving 50k on this bloke. He doesn't have a buy. You've already talked about his opening run and fixture when we've talked about Connor Rosey. This bloke is an absolute captaincy lock in my side for the first 4 or 5 weeks. I can't see why you wouldn't start him if you're paying over 600k for a midfielder. Am I too strong on him there? Have I just got tunnel vision for Zach Butters, mate? Or should I be looking at some potential cons here with the pick?
Yeah, look, he hasn't moved out of my side since the start either. I guess one of the hesitancies may be having Rosie, Butters, and Bergman. Like, will there be enough points to go around? Like, Port Adelaide isn't the best team for market share / the Supercoach pie. So is it investing too much in a midfield that's probably not one of the best midfields, like a Brisbane type? But on the flip side, with that fixture run being a contract year, I think he's the type of player that you just lock in. He wants to get that money sort of value up early. Now, the only caveat I'm going to bring in here just to play devil's advocate is round 7, the Geelong matchup. And so I think in his 2 games in 2025, I'm just going to bring up the exact numbers. His 2 worst games of 2025 were against Geelong, a 53 in round 10 and a 45 in round 21. Oof. You take those out, and I think he averaged 126.4. So he'll have Geelong early, and that may be a concern because it might mean that, all right, he goes 120 for the first 6 rounds, and then he scores a 50, and he'll be easy get for non-owners. But what non-owners must consider is how many points has Zach Butters put on the board by the time you get him at the end of round 9. And I think that's where I can sleep better knowing I've got Butters in my side than saying, I'm going to get him at round 9. And that's a really scary proposition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Has not left my side, brother. Adam Treloar is someone that's been in and out, but we'll talk about him when we get to the forward lines, as with Christian Petrarca. Errol Goulden. What a player. What a man he is. He's currently not on my side. I've got one of his teammates in, which may be a little bit controversial at the moment. But at 566,000, in your opinion, is he too good to pass up?
It's a tough one because I think there's probably 3 or 4 players around this price mark that you would be weighing up.
Ashcroft.
Ashcroft. I'm thinking a bit higher as well. So you've got your Sarong types, you've got Callahan, you've got Anderson, you've got Heaney, which I reckon is who you are talking about, DR. So there are plenty of names around that mark, and Goulden probably has the least, how do I say this, the least secure Supercoach friendly role.
Yes, yep.
But he's equally got probably one of the safest floors off that mix because he gets the ball regardless. And I think that's the beauty with Goulden is he's valued because he didn't play half the season. And he's also valued because he was kicking to no one. Now Charlie, you bring in Curnow.
Your boy.
You're going to get more score involvement. Like you can imagine how many times Goulden's just going to be looking for Curnow. And Curnow's going to love the service. He didn't get it at Carlton. He's going to love the service he gets from Errol from the wing. So I've got him at the moment, but I think there is also an argument not to go there. And we should just wait and see how he looks in preseason. I reckon he'll be chomping at the bit to get it into that new look forward line, though.
100%. Look, I was a little bit surprised with his ownership. I thought that was a little bit too high at 34.3%. I'm not ragging on the pick whatsoever because he was in my initial side. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised there. Darcy Parish, we've talked about injury-prone players before, but geez, this guy's almost got to take the cake with his soft tissue history. That it's been a disaster trying to get this bloke on the field. But when he is on the field, we know that he can score well. One thing I think we do need to take into account with Darcy Parish, which maybe isn't being brought up enough, is the fact that, and I need to do more numbers on this, but how many games he's actually played with Jai Caldwell in the side as well? That's probably a slight concern for me because I think that when Caldwell really broke out into a really relevant Supercoach option, it was when Parish actually went down. So what's the mix going to look like there? You've got your Caldwell, your Parish, Durham. Who knows what's going to happen with Zach Merritt? Does Sharp get a little bit of time as an apprenticeship, here to there? It's going to be an interesting mix, but currently for me at 334,000, if I can get him, we'll keep him aside for the first 8 weeks and he stays healthy, surely that's almost got to be enough. What are you thinking, mate?
Yeah, look, he's just another type that it's a bit like Young, but I'm less definitive on it. Like, I don't have him in at the moment, but I can make some structural changes to get him in. If he has an injury-free preseason and he shows the spark out of stoppages and it's not so much about the disposal of the numbers for me. It's how he looks. Like when I'm looking at him, do I see a player that's getting from contest to contest, that's getting in and under, that's getting the ball out? Those are the sort of intangible things I'm going to be looking for when they play the practice games. If he passes all of them, then he could well and truly be in the round one side. The only issue I see with Parish is I'm going to spruik some names out here, and I just don't see what the Essendon midfield mix is going to look like. You got Merritt, Caldwell. You're probably going to have Sharp there in round one. You have Parish. You have Durham. There was mixes of Archie Perkins. I think Essendon fans don't want him in there. Like, that's a lot of midfielders. Setherfield was their biggest centre-bounce midfield last year. He got delisted, relisted again. Does he get a game? Like, what does the Essendon midfield mix look like? And if it is Merritt that takes a step back, you had McGrath going through it there at the end of the year. Like, there are so many mouths to feed. The thing with Parish, though, is if he's named, you know he's going to be playing midfield because he can't play anywhere else.
Where is he play? Where else does he play?
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And I really think that Caldwell's the guy in the Essendon midfield. Like, he's the one that has the potential to carry the team in the back moving forward. But he's also got his own injury concerns. So it'll be a really interesting mix to see in the prackies.
Agree. I think with Parrish, you either really love the pick or almost you really hate the pick. There'll be some people that look at that name and go, absolutely not. And look, with
Never
5
again.
on the bench, do they manage his tog a little bit more, particularly to start the season? Who knows? But look, he's in my side at the moment, mate. You got King Nick and then King Marcus there at 9 and 10, two of the absolute superstars of the comp, 28.8% for Nick Dacos and then 20.6% for the Bont. Personally, if the Bont had a better fixture to start the year, I'd be much more tempted to start him. But that's what's really putting me off. I think he's got a few difficult matchups, and I think he's someone I'll hopefully look to upgrade. The only issue, mate, is that, and I never don't start without him, but for people that don't start him and say, oh, I'll just bring him in at some stage, do you realize how difficult that is? Because there's periods that this man does not get below 700K. He is just an absolute superstar of the comp. Cannot believe that he doesn't have a Brownlow medal around his neck. But what do you think? Is the thought of starting the Bont come across your mind this preseason, realistically?
This may be bad to say, but no.
I'm the same. And it may be bad.
Yeah, it does feel bad. What I will say is I think there's a reason for this. It's not just putting it out there. So that the Dogs' first 8 fixtures, there's one soft matchup, I feel. So you've got Brisbane, GWS, Adelaide, Essendon, the soft matchup, Hawthorn, Geelong, Sydney, Fremantle. So you've got 6 final sides. You've got a Sydney team that should be better, and you've got Essendon. And that's not an easy fixture to start off with, even for someone like the Bont. You imagine that there's going to be some attention in there. And this is what we always say with the Bont. Like, he can fight through it, right? But even if he gets down to 640, that's a win for non-owners.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you can get a 70K shaved, 640 sounds like a bargain for Bont. And that's where I think there is a reason to go away from him just to start. And the other thing is they have an early buy as well. So that's another reason where normally the Dogs haven't played in that opening round. But now that they do play in the opening round, you've got another reason to say, oh, that's good. I remember last year when he did, I think it was a calf. Everyone was so torn as to whether to start him or whether it was not always in a good way to have the decision taken away from you. And I think having that early buy is like that reason for me. It's like, even with that fixture, I've got one more reason to not start the Bont. You'll probably buy it, but at least you can back your gut there.
Absolutely. And I have put together an article in the season guide, deep diving into some fixture talk. And there is a particular period of time during the season where you must own Marcus Bontempelli. They do go on a very, very nice 4-week run.
With Dacos, you got him at 28%. I'm going to chuck out some other numbers before you go there. So I'm going to give you some numbers, and I want you to sort of say whether you feel Dacos and Bont are over-owned or whether these other players are under-owned. So these are some players that I was interested in as well. So Caleb Serong at 14%, Callahan at 13%, Anderson at 12%, Rowell at 11%, and Bailey Smith at 6%, Jordan Dawson at 7%. So that whole mix of names, all under 15%. So Serong, Callahan, Rowell, Anderson, Dawson, Smith. Compared to these two or anyone on this list, do you feel like some of these players are over-owned, or do you think some of the ones I mentioned are under-owned? It's probably a mix of both.
Definitely a bit of a mix of both. And what we've always got to do here is take price into account as well. So taking price into account, yeah, I like a number of those players as starting picks over both Dacos and Bont as well. And I think a big issue for people as well, when you go down the list of the top, say, 10 most expensive midfielders, the large majority have a buy. And I think that's also something that can make things tough depending on how many of these blokes that you're going with. But currently, and I don't know if I'll stick like this, but I'm running with 4 primo midfielders, proper premium midfielders, and 3 of them have an early buy. So I may need to balance that out a little bit, but that's what I'm looking at currently. So someone like a Dawson, I think, is a good selection because he doesn't have that early buy. He's only got the single buy, but traditionally, again, Dawson's someone that does have a couple of floor games. You can tend to picking up a little bit cheaper, but does his style of play maybe fit to the new rules? But is there anyone that you're thinking in your head out of the blokes that you mentioned, it's just way too high or way too low? Any big standouts?
Well, that's the interesting part, mate, where of the 17 most expensive midfielders this year, only 4 of them don't have the buy. That's your Freo boys in Sarong and Brayshaw. You got the Port in Butters, and then you've got Dawson. And that's where I think Dawson potentially is a bit unders. I'm just going to go jump very quickly to the buys, and I think there's one player, or well, 2 from the same team, that I think GWS is a pseudo early buy. Because, yes, they do share with St Kilda, but have a look at that buy that they share in round 13 with Richmond.
Who are you going to have?
Probably not picking many Richmond players, are you?
None.
So
none.
The way that I think about it is GWS have 1 buy. And for that reason, right now, I've got Finn Callaghan in my squad. Because I think they have the early fixture. That's 2 of us. That makes 2 of us. Because the 13 buy is basically irrelevant. Unless a Sam Lawler comes about, you do have your Whitfield, you do have your Ash, yes, those types. But even GWS, apart from Green, Callaghan, Whitfield, Ash, there's not too much relevance there. And you're probably not going to have all 4 of them anyway, which is what you normally have in terms of primos on a buy. So that's where if I've got Callaghan and Naz as round 4 players, I'm not too worried. That's just how I would sit. But open to discussion there. That's where I've got Callaghan a little almost in the tier of a no buy player, early buy. But that's my take.
That is a very, very interesting discussion there, mate. And Finn Callaghan, I know we haven't talked about him, but this guy's an absolute freak. I'm a huge fan of Callaghan. I actually started him last year. So I saw the talent. I identified it early on, but I didn't manage that too well. I ended up trading him out and getting screwed at the end of the day. But
do you know what my hot take this time last year was when Klopp asked was that Finn Callaghan was going to be a top 8 midfielder. He finished just outside, but he improved 28 points from 2024 to 2025. He's got it in him. And a stat that I love to use is handball receives, because it just shows that your teammates are looking out for you because they want the ball in your hands. And Callaghan, I think, led the league in handball receives last year. That's the type of players you want to be investing in as a Supercoach option.
I just think that he's the absolute prototype of the modern day midfielder. He's strong, he's tall, he's fast, he can run. He's just got so many great gifts, this man. And looking at his data again from last year and seeing that track up. Oh, jeez, so I'll tell you what. He's a superstar, so this bloke. Absolute superstar, mate. All right, buddy. Midfield is done. Now, we've got 7 options in the ruck here. And we start with Tristan Cherry at 56.3%, down to Sammy Draper at 30%. Max Gawn only at 21.1%. We got Dogger at 18.8%, English at 15.4%, Big Broody Grundy at 8.1%, and then Mr. Generational himself, TDK, at 5.3%. Is there anything that's standing out to you here, mate?
I'm not surprised that Cherry's at 1 because I did do some data. He averaged 127 for the season. But if you exclude... I'm doing maths on the run here. So you just talk very quickly about Cherry and then I'll give my take. Sorry about this.
With Cherry, he's someone that entered my side day 1 of the team picker and just has not left my side since. And I know that some people are a bit worried potentially about his lack of athleticism with the new rules about not having to nominate the ruckman. Will he actually get to enough contests? I suppose a little counterpoint to that is, well, does he just sit behind the ball at times and get an intercepted contested mark? There's other ways for him to score, such as tackling as well. So we've seen history in the last couple of years. His prime age, I just don't see a world where I'm not going to go with him. And look, we can predict the effects of the new rules on different rucks, but I think we may be looking into it too much. I'm not going to stuff around here in my ruck line. I'm just going to lock in Tristan Sherry and not even think about it, mate, because I tend to stuff around too much in my ruck line.
So I've got the stats here for you now. So if you guys remember back to the start of last year, I think Cherry had like this hamstring niggle in the Adelaide game, and he just didn't look right. Probably took him a couple of weeks until the Good Friday matchup to get well. In the last 15 games of the season, DR, I'm going to put it to you on the spot here. What do you reckon Cherry's average was?
In the last 15.
So until round 5, he averaged 105. What do you think his last 15 game average was?
Geez, well, it must have been close to 100, 130 plus. 135, I'll say.
134.4. 134.4. If you're averaging 134.4, you're a 720k bloke.
Beast.
So right there, you've got 30k potential upside. I'm not saying he's going to go 134 because it's very hard with the new ruck rule changes and all that to really predict what it's going to look like. And I can see that you've got Dogger Jackson in your side right now. And I want to put it to you there is, do you see Dogger playing as a midfielder, sort of like that safe foundational base that means that even if he's not rucking and Shrek's rucking, that he should benefit from the new rules, and you've got the midfield time, that you still see him as value at 6'11"?
I'd rather start Max. So I'm a much bigger fan of Max Gawn, but I was just trying to find a way just to free up close to 100k to make a few different moves and upgrade a couple of areas in the side. It's a bit of an unknown for me, Dogger, because if he plays ruck, fantastic. We know what he can score like. He's an athletic type ruck, and I think he's absolutely built for these new rules. I think it's really, really going to suit him. As a midfielder, again, big-bodied midfielder, fantastic. That's brilliant. We talked about the fact that there's no ruck nomination anymore. We know what Big Shrek Darcy's like. How many contests will he be able to get to? If Dogger Jackson's actually playing as a midfielder, Shrek doesn't get to the contest, guess what? You've got Dogger there as your ruckman straight away. But the thing that always scares me in the back of my mind is what happens if he plays as a key forward. That's my biggest worry. But you look at some of the forwards that they've got there, they are stacked. You've got your Voss, your Tracy, you've got Jai Amos as well. Is there room for Dogger as a key forward? You'd probably rather him over in Amos and a couple of these players. But, there's still a few unknowns. I would rather go with Maxi Gawn, but at this stage, I'm happy to run him there at the moment. But that's not with great confidence, mate.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. I've got Tim English in at the moment. I think that, yes, he does have the early buy, but I think there's some value there at 601k. He did score 200 late in the season against an Essendon side, which was obviously ruck depleted. But I think the transition rules should work in his favor. One thing that, just hypothetically thinking how a game may look next year, because you've got no ruck nominations, I think there is ruck nomination, but very quickly now, those blokes that are sitting down the line waiting for intercept marks, I'm thinking namely your Max Gawn, your Darcy Cameron types, they may have fewer ruck contests that they'll be able to attend just because they can't get to there in time. Whereas the rucks that more so travel with the ball, your Cherry, your English types, your Tom DeConning, even a Brodie Grundy, they should be much better off. Simply because they're going to be around the ball more often and they can get to those contests, get those more stoppage points. So that's where hypothetically I'm seeing. But at the same time, Max Gawn probably is probably the best proponent of jumping in the ruck and getting hit outs at centre clearances, centre bounces, whatever you want to call them now. So I think for him, there'll be some detrimental effects, some positive effects, and they probably offset. Whereas for a type like Tim English, he doesn't really get many centre bounce points anyway. So what will the new rules do there? That's something that we will probably want to see how it looks in preseason.
Question for you, and this is one thing that still makes me uneasy about having someone like Jackson in my side. I know we've got the flex position where you can fit another ruck if possible, but it's fair to say, isn't it, that if you start with, in your case, Sherry and English, that you're fading Gawn for the season? Ideally, aren't you? Because unless you're going for that flex, you want your two ruckmen to stay healthy. Is that something that sits okay with you, knowing that if all things go well, Maxi's not going to enter your side. That's a thing that concerns me. Even starting with a Jackson, it's like I've got in my head, it's still going to be Max Gawn there by the end of the season.
Yeah, and it's a great point you raised, mate, because I don't think there's a right answer, simply because what that means is we don't know how the flex is going to look this year. Last year I ended up with Naz at the flex. Like that's a fair flex. That's like, but at the start of the season, I would have definitely wanted a Ruck 3 there. But how you forecast? I don't think I started Max Gawn last year. No, I didn't. It was Cherry and DeConnie. But
yes, yeah.
At that point in time, I was like, well, Tom DeConning's going to be a superstar. Like he's going to be easily one of the top 3 rucks. But as the year went on, things changed. And Gawn eventually came into the side, but it wasn't after some tinkering. And I would have loved to have Grundy in there as well. So I guess having 2 rucks doesn't close you out because things change. You can even use the flex. So I wouldn't be too worried about starting the rucks that you do want to start, whether it's fixture-based, whether it's value-based or such, knowing that you do have a couple of outlets to get a Gawn into your side, that sort of thing. I think a more dangerous approach would be having an R3 that's purely ruck. Because what that means is you have to use your trades every time a rookie ruck comes about to trade out the ruck R3 on your bench, trade them back in, that sort of thing. And I think we've been blessed with Kalani White, Liam Reedy, these types, and Cooper Duff-Tyler, these types where we don't have to fall into that trap ourselves.
Yeah, that's a very good point, mate. How about Tom DeConning, your man? Do you think he's a realistic selection? Surely with the new rules, it's got to suit his style of play to a T.
You know, if Rowan Marshall's trade went through, it wouldn't have surprised me if we're sitting here saying that Tom DeConning's R2, Rowan Marshall's R1. And that's how quickly things change in a game of Supercoach. One sort of sliding doors moment, and you can't pick him. Like, how are you going to pick DeConning without knowing what the ruck splits look like? Like, if DeConning was rucking 75% and Ross Lyon came out and said that, can you still pick him? Like, he has to shoulder the full load, I reckon, to be a 115 guy. And that's where I know that English can do it. Whereas with DeConning, it probably presents a lot of value. And that's the sucky part of all of this, is that if Marshall got the trade to Geelong, it would have been so good. It would have been so good for us as super coaches.
Oh, and Rowan Marshall could be in the conversation as well, mate. Who knows? And he's that all-star card that you've got for game day squad could be worth a lot more.
Can I put this to you? That I reckon Rowan Marshall will become more relevant than Tom DeConning this year. Because if DeConning's rucking, Rowan Marshall could become a DPP forward of round 6.
Yes.
And then he's probably relevant regardless of what it looks like, because our forwards are so bare at the moment. But that's obviously wishful thinking. If they're playing 50-50 ruck time, or if DeConning has the higher split, good for Marshall as a forward. Sorry, I don't think both will get it though. I think one or the other. Yeah.
2 more players, mate, that we haven't really touched on. We quickly will. Brodie Grundy, phenomenal season last year, particularly end of the year. 8.1%, fair and reasonable.
I don't know what it feels like. There's a vendetta out on him. Like, he puts together that season, and no one wants to start him. And whether it's a combination of the bye, whether it's because people don't think he can do it again, Sydney should be a better side this year. I think it's more so to do with the price, and that's why Max is probably a bit not as high as well. But seeing so many go to Cherry and not Gawn and Grundy is very interesting to me. I think Cherry and Gawn is the optimal starting. But if you set Grundy in that mix, I would have no complaints. Gawn and Cherry both don't have the early buy as well. That probably plays into it as well. Where do you stand on Grundy?
I think when you compare someone like a Grundy and a Max, like Grundy had those couple of gap years where he wasn't actually scoring like an ultra premium, whereas Max just has not stopped, like year after year after year. And I know there were circumstances when Grundy was at Melbourne and all the rest, but that's one thing that always plays back into my mind. Could he regress? But after seeing him last year and actually owning him as well, he was an absolute monster. He was really the bloke that you wanted to have in your side so you could put the captain on him week upon week. He won on one of the maddest runs in Supercoach history, this man. So I'm not writing him off whatsoever. But when I compare him and Max Gawn, and there's just over 10K separating them, I'm always going to go with the tried and true Max Gawn personally, mate.
Yeah.
Sammy Draper. What do you reckon, mate? Sammy Draper. He was in my side originally. Not
he's
currently
my
at
side.
the moment. He's
still in my side, but as a forward. I think until some word comes out that Fort is going to play with him or that he's not ready, if he's the Ruck one, Rucking by himself in round 0, I'm going to play him because he provides perfect Ruck cover for the bye that Tim English is on. I don't think they share the same bye, and we'll have to check that out at the end. There's not too many more forwards that I prefer to start as well. Like, I don't have an Adam Treloar in the side at the moment just because you look at the Western Bulldogs midfield. Bont isn't moving. Richards isn't moving. You think that Kennedy's probably locked in there. They got to get more reps into Fraser, and are they going to sacrifice it for a 34-year-old Adam Treloar? Libba's probably going to be phased out of there. Like, there's not too many. I can't see a world where Treloar averages more than 50, 55% CBAs because it just isn't enough to go around. And if you're comparing a 311K Treloar, who could get to 600K, but is very unlikely to get to 600K, I think Draper showed before his Achilles that he was making it. He was making it as an AFL ruckman. And at Brizzy, if Fagan comes out, and I think you mentioned that he said that Draper's the number 1 ruck, you just have to back him in.
Season, mate.
You have to back him in. And if Fort plays, because they do love Fort even as a sub, 2 rucks on the bench, like in round 0, if Fort isn't playing, I'll put it to you this way. I'm not the Brizzy fan, obviously, here, but if Fort doesn't play in round 0 and is healthy with 23 on the bench, I think that gives me so much confidence that Sam Draper is the ruckman that they'll stick with for a prolonged period of time.
Oh, he's in my side if that's the case.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion at the moment that they probably will run with Darcy Fort. Ideally, and I've said this in other videos, but ideally, our ultimate ruck setup was the Big O Joey Danaher setup. So Big O takes the majority of time there. Joey chops out for a little bit, gets involved in the game, gets his hands on the ball. Oscar's a rest. Joey goes back. So that's our best way to structure up, I think. But the issue is if you look at our forwards that we've got, none of those players, if you take Ford out, have ever really played that second ruck role. I was even looking back to Oscar Allen at his time at West Coast. He's had a few CBAs from time to time to fill in, but it's never really been something that he's done before. So that's the interesting thing for me. If we don't run with Ford, who is that bloke going to be? Is it going to be a Ty Gallup if we play him? I'm not too sure. So that's probably the big question mark for me, is who is going to be that bloke to chop out if it's not Darcy Ford.
Question without notice. How tall is too tall? So you've got Draper. Let's remove Ford for a second. You've got Morris, Allen, Hipwood, Ty Gallup. Can you fit in Ford? That's going to be 6 key / tall players.
Not with those guys. You've got, Hipwood won't be right for the start of the season, so you can rule him out for the start of the season. So that really means that if you look at Draper as that ruckman, then you've got Morris,
Allen,
Fort, Gallup, and Allen. So they're 4 blokes that you'd look at. I'm really not too sure. At this stage, I'm thinking that maybe they might prefer a Fort to, say, a Gallup at the start of the season, just while Draper's still easing into things, because I don't expect his TOG to be overly high to start the season as well. So that's my reasoning behind why I think Fort's going to start off the season. Ideally, once Draper's got a bit of fitness and they're confident they can run through full games, then I think that's where we might see a bit of a change, and you might get more of a key forward type in over someone like a Darcy Ford.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a perfect summation there.
Last thing that I want to mention, mate, before we get onto the forwards, there's been a little bit of talk about these new ruck rules really affecting these top liners. And I had a great man message me the other day, Murray, shout out to you, mate. And his ruck line concerned me slightly. He's going absolutely bottom price as you can. So my advice to him was, mate, great. If this works out, you're a genius and you've got such a massive leg up, it's not funny. However, if it goes wrong and 2 of these blokes either go down early, don't get a game. I'll tell you, one of them was Vicentini from Port, where you've got Jordan Sweet just absolutely breathing down his neck.
I think Jordan Sweet is the ruckman. Like, I don't think once Vigo got dropped midway through the season, Sweet took it as his own. He had a 200 game. I don't think Dante Vicentini is their number one ruck at the moment.
It's just so concerning to me that you don't have an exit plan if things go wrong. Yeah. So that's my main concern. And again, that's why I've decided this year currently to just lock into all the big boys. Because if I look back through my history, trades wasted for a position where you've only got 2 on field and 1 on the bench, it seems like a waste a third of my trades on the ruck each and every year if I stuff around with them. So I just want to go big this year, mate, and hopefully not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
All right. Onto the forwards. Now, we've got some blokes who I don't think really need much discussion. Sheasel and Sam Flanders, 69.7, 65.6. I'll be completely honest with you. I think that's too low. I'll put a tweet out. Sam Flanders, if he's fit and playing midfield, he should be in 100% of sides. 100% of sides. There should not be a single side that doesn't have stupid, sexy Flanders in their forward line. Would you agree on that? Is he one of the biggest locks in the game for you?
Until something tells me otherwise, the top 2 are not moving at all. Like, there's no reason in the world I would change either of them. And I think we're going to get to, until something changes, I think we'll see the number of sides that I think we can use Sam Flanders' ownership percentage as an indicator of how many sides are playing the game for real at the start of the season.
Good point. I would absolutely agree.
He's one of those players,
You shouldn't even be, in my opinion, you probably should just in case things happen, but I haven't even experimented not having this bloke in my side. I think he's that much for lock. And same as Sheasel, I don't think he needs really any discussion.
On Sheasel, I think the coaches that are fading him, it's an interesting point because if you remember back to the year that we had Taranto, Goulden, there's some names that have Dunkley, like that year where I think there's 5 bona fide premium forward options at the start of the year. And now Sheasel's probably not value based on his performance last year. But there's no one else you're going to go to that you can reliably say can score as consistently with as high a ceiling as Sheasel is. But if it was those years ago with Goulden, Taranto, that mix, in that year, then you could possibly have the case at least to have some other options that I'm comfortable with going if I don't go a Sheasel. So that's where I sit on Sheasel being a lock is, probably not value, but he's a player that you're going to want to have in, and there's no one else that you can really sideways him to that you would feel confident with, in my personal opinion.
I agree. It's that lack of competition, isn't it? You just don't see those huge names that we have seen in some past seasons. Yeah. Christian Petrarca, I'm currently not starting him. It's more of a buy situation. Yeah. But all reports, he has been absolutely lighting it up. It's been Noah Rao, Truck, and Bailey Humphrey as the 4 main midfielders, with apparently Took playing all over the place. Now, I don't know if this is just an experimental preseason type thing, but the more and more that I think about it, I'm scared not currently owning him. What are your thoughts?
I've got him in at the moment as well. Again, haven't changed too much from the team pick just because it's very easy to be reactionary to things like what you just said, Dia, like the Colby news, like what one person says is playing in the midfield. You don't know whether, so this for Colby very quickly, but it's more blanket statement is Colby's playing in the midfield. You never know whether it's just to get him up to speed in another position in case someone gets injured mid-game. Like, you just never know with these sort of things. Like, you don't know if Dimmer's experiment with Took being the utility man around the ground or if this is what they're actually going to do. But we'll get to see it in round 0. We'll see with Petrarca what his CBA percentage looks like, who he's in a rotation with, all of this information. You know that Raul and Noah are like locked in there. Throw away the keys. Yep. What does that third midfielder spot looks like? If it is Petrarca, I think you have to start him. That's where I said again for the matter that there's probably no one else that you can go. Like Pickett's in there, but he's up and down. Even in a down year, Christian Petrarca was so many times hit the 80 to 95 marker that even though he probably was going down in price every week, he just was never giving you that floor 40, 50 score that a Cozzy could give you. That a Sam Darcy could give you. That sort of thing.
For me, it comes down to the fact that I'm really keen on some other Sydney players as well as other Gold Coast players. Yeah. I'm really concerned about that early buy for me, but maybe I might need to prioritise someone like a Track. I know on my side that I'm a fan of some of the forward line rookies that we've got, and I think that they can make a bit of coin. So I'm sort of sticking your Sheasel, your Flanders there as absolute locks. There's been a Trelaw, a Draper at that F3, and then I'm lining with rookies with your Philippus, your Marshalls. Don't know what's going to happen with Dev Robertson, Sid Drapers, there's Liam Reedies. So for me, there are lots of forward rookie options that I think have the potential to make some good cash. And if I'm already locking in your Sheasel and your Flanders there, I'm thinking, do I actually need a Track? But if you look at that starting fixture as well, we could see some big games early on, and that's the trouble with these Gold Coast players. I want them early on with their fixture, but they've got that silly buy, which makes things so complicated and frustrating, mate. But I'll definitely have to look at maybe tinkering to get the cement bag back in. And then we go to Sam Darcy, the human skyscraper, and he's one of my favorite players in the comp. I think that he's definitely top 5, non-Brisbane player for me, because I just love watching this guy play. And I think it's just going to be such a privilege and a pleasure to be able to watch this man go about his work and just improve year upon year for hopefully the next decade, mate. As a starting pick at 517,000, as a key forward, we've talked about the Dogs' tough run to start up. Have you considered him whatsoever? Because 20% almost, 19.7, that is a little bit higher than what I expected personally. People looking at that potential upside and just the fact that there's a freak talent here, mate.
Yeah, look, I think he's another one of those players where you're probably going away from the never start key forwards rule for Darcy, but it also makes you very scared at the same time, because we saw last year he started like a house on fire, got injured, came back really strong, and then I think we both owned him at the end of last year, correct? Did you own him?
I think it was before the Richmond game. It was a Richmond game and he went nuts.
That's the same game.
You little beauty.
But then it was like a very interesting roller coaster to end last year. And that's what you're gonna come up with. And if you're telling me, let's forget the buy, because they both have an early season buy, just different ones. Petrarca and Darcy, I have more confidence in Petrarca as a pick, but I can see Sam Darcy being the player that can win you a week. But at the same time, I can see Sam Darcy being the player that can lose you a week. At the same time, I guess with more best 18 rounds this year, you're a bit more protected. But at 518K, you're not bringing in a player that you need to be protected in your best 18 sort of thing, if that makes sense. He's not on here, but if you're looking for a key forward that could be that pendulum player, sorry. It's not Jamara, it's Charlie Curnow. So,
you didn't take it from me. Continue.
Jamara, I think you wanted Jamara. So Charlie Curnow at 377K, so 140K cheap, and then you go down another 140K to Jamara. These are the levels to the sort of thing. So if you're banking on 100 from Sam Darcy, Curnow gets you 80, Jamara gets you 60. Jamara's number 1 value, Kernow's number 2 value, Darcy's number 3 value. If, like, in that realm.
A man that I see very similar to Darcy, prospects anyway, is Riley Thilthorpe, the thrill seeker. I see him as a very similar style player to Sam Darcy, and he's someone that doesn't have a buy as well. So if you're looking at a Darcy, I'd also be looking and comparing him to a Riley Thilthorpe as well. Look at fixture, look at buys and all that sort of stuff. If you are interested in that more key forward type, because Thilthorpe is also someone that can chop out in the ruck at times as well. So I just thought it was interesting that that Darcy was at close to 20, and you don't even see Thilthorpe, who I think will score pretty similar to him by the end of the year, not even at 10%. But Jamara is a man who has recently, well, he hasn't at the moment, as you can see, but he has been in my side because looking at that early fixture and upside, if this bloke can get a couple of nice bags early, that could really, really set him up. And from all reports, it looks like he's traveling pretty well, got things in order, and he's got a long way to go. We all know this, but the talent level is absolutely there. People forget how good this bloke actually is. At rookie price, or just above rookie price, I think he's a really, really good shout at 214,100. And I'm actually trying to find a way to fit him in my side.
I think, again, very, very similar. I don't have him in at the moment, but he's a play that it all comes down to the eye test. When you see a player play and whether or not you're convinced in them, like with Jamara, there's not much. At his best, he's way below and he's way underpriced. But if he's got the lackadaisical, just get in contest, just jogging there, that's not what Jamara needs to be. This may be his last chance at the AFL level. If he's sprinting after the ball, chasing packs, crashing packs, then yeah, he's a talisman for Gold Coast. And I think those are the types of players that we should be starting. And I'm going to go down to the list here. Jordan De Goey is the same thing, where I guess with De Goey, the issue that I think a lot of coaches haven't really grasped onto the fact is he has never averaged well enough to be a relevant player. So it's not like 90s. A Parrish type where Parrish, I think, has gone 115. But with De Goey, I went back through his stats: 82 in 2024, 97 in 2023, 85 2022, 85 2021, 81 2020. Apart from that 95, he's just been an 80s guy's whole career. And if you're paying at an average of 60 for a bloke that's had the injuries with the hope that he averages 80, it's not really that much of a dividend for play with so much risk attached to him. Whereas with the Jamara, you're not looking for 80s. You're probably looking for 65 to 70, and he's made back enough money easily.
The thing with De Goey, he's not even technically a fallen premium because we've never really been able to count him as a premium for position. Maybe 1 year if he's been in the forward line, there haven't been the stars that we've had there. But I'm absolutely with you, mate. Haven't even looked at Jordan De Goey, even though I might even been playing around in my first team picker. The only other two we've got there, Cozzy Pickett. Is he a safe sort of type bet here at just under 500K? Decent buy. He's got that huge ceiling in him. He's also got a bit of a floor in him as well. We know that Track's gone, Oliver's gone. There'll be a bit of a different midfield mix. I suppose the main issue for me is he was one of their highest CBA mids last year. So will he actually get any more? I don't know if there's any more time to give the man. So I think probably what we saw last year might be where he continues to score at myself. I don't see a lot of upside here. I don't see a heap of downside either. But there's not a lot that excites me about this pick. How are you feeling about him quickly, mate?
Yeah, so 20 games played last year, only turned up in 6 of them. And as you mentioned, he led the Ds in CBAs. Now with Petrarch and Oliver gone, if he was 4th in line for CBAs, then you could see there's upside there. But if you're leading the team in CBAs, I'm not too sure where the points are coming from. He gets on the scoreboard, but Ds as a whole are going to be worse. So where's the improvement coming from for Pickett? It's not through goals. He gets suspended. I think this is one of those players that might be a last upgrade sort of player, but I don't want to put him in my forward line, use a spot on him, and then say like, I can't get one of the round 6 DPP plays because I've got a Cozzy in my team and I can't sideways trade him. Like that sort of thing. I'd rather come into him than start with him. A couple of plays that aren't here, mate, very quickly, that I just want to get your thoughts on. So one of your boys, Zach Bailey, I think he has levels to his game that he can go to. And with Lockie Neal having stuff going on at the moment, could be on the way out west again. Do you see Bailey as a type that could step in the mid? Like, what do you see the Brisbane midfield looking like if you can put some percentages to their CBAs roughly?
Well, you're going to have still the big four there, I think. And we can talk about Neil's Tog and what's going on, but he's still going to be obviously one of our main midfielders. So you got Neil, Dunkley, McCluggage, and Ashcroft who are going to be the big four. I think Rainey will continue to come in from time to time, along with someone like a Zach Bailey. And also depends if Dan Annabelle makes the side. Like, it's hard to imagine that a first-year player can just come in and get some minutes in a premiership midfield. Levi Ashcroft later towards the year, got a little bit of time, but there are a lot of names to go through there, and that's probably what puts me off Rat Bailey a little bit, the fact that I don't think there'll be enough time for him there, and he really did step up when Lockie Neal went out of the side, but given the fact that you've got Neal back there now, as well as some other options that could put their hand up, like your Levi Ashcrofts, I don't know if there's going to be enough time in the middle. But if one of our big four went down, he's the guy that comes in because he offers something different there, that burst out of stoppage, impact, speed. So I think he's got some really good tools, but consistency is probably something that concerns me, along with that early buy as well, mate.
Yeah. And so Pickett doesn't have the early buy, but I'll give you a player that I'm going to give you some numbers here. It's a 7-game stretch, and I want you to try pick the play. So this stretch is from round 17 to round 23 last year. 135, 134, 96, 99, 111, 112, 96. It's a forward. He was a forward last year, and he's a forward this year. Forward only as well.
A forward only that did that. It's not Jeremy Cameron.
It's not Jeremy Cameron. He had another stretch earlier in the year that went 80, 114, 90, 126, 110, 100.
Oh, no, he's not a forward. I don't know, mate. I've got no idea. Who are you talking about?
One of Jeremy Cameron's teammates.
Oh, Brian, of course.
Brian Myers.
Yes. What is about 507, is he this year? Just about
508. So he started the year averaging 71. And then Chris Scott moved him up the ground a little bit, got him a bit more, even got him into some CBAs. Cool. And then in the last, whilst I do the maths here, in the last 7, 10, 13, 15 rounds. In the last 15 rounds of the season, he averaged 103.1. And that is a play that is priced at 94. He's got 10-point upside if he can carry that through. Where do you sit on Brian Myers?
Well, I had no idea who you were talking about, mate. So probably still not that high on him. But if he had a better buy, I think I'd be much more interested. But given the numbers that you just spat out at me then, this is a man that could have a lot of upside. So I'm actually writing him down here, Brian Myers. I'm going to look into him a lot more closely, mate. Absolutely. That's a good call.
But yeah, I think for the most part, Rankin's the other one that missing the first couple of games of the season. But if he wasn't, we would be much, much more enamored by the pick, I reckon. I reckon if Rankin was available, this whole top 10, apart from the top 2, would look a whole lot different.
Yep, he'd be in my side, Isaac Rankin. I started with him when I first opened the team picker, and then the first comment was in the great cause of the ladies, man. Isaac's not available, DR, so I had to make that very, very quick change. Thanks to ladies, man. But absolutely agree, and he's definitely a target I'll be looking at as well, mate. And the only other one we've got here, quickly, is Sam Laylaw, Al Payton's man. Look, at under 300,000, there could be something there, but I'd need to see him in the midfield for a fair majority of the time. I don't see him as a forward being able to have enough impact for me, but Al being a Richmond man knows his stuff, so someone just to keep a look at as well, mate.
And the flavour of the month, I feel, this month is Connor McDonald at Hawthorn. I'm going to admit that I've got no idea why at the moment. Now, there is some word that he's training with the midfielders, same with Josh Weddle. Now, I forgot who it was, but someone, I think it was George, mentioned that Connor McDonald could be one of the best players at Hawthorn if he got the run through the midfield. So just a name to put on the watch list. He's not in my side at the moment, but he's one of those players where if he springs in preseason, it's not out of like, oh, I didn't know it was going to happen. Just that right now, I haven't seen anything to suggest that he is going to break out in 2026.
Do you know what? I am keen. I've had him in the side, but it's the buys. I just can't do it on that particular round, so I had to take him out. But I think if he gets the minutes in there and there's minutes up for grabs, and he could be a very, very nice selection for us, mate. All right, now, very quickly, we've gone through a heap of players so far, but we'll just touch on any that we haven't so far. And we do have 3 Essendon players here, Andy McGrath, Jordan Ridley, and Archie Roberts. I've called a lot more on McGrath, just not sure what his role's going to be. Ridley, durability, the price is magnificent, but I just couldn't go there. He's been a real burn man for me. But the one that does interest me is Archie Roberts at 452,700. In your original team upload, he featured in your side. Is he still currently there? And give us some quick thoughts on Archie Roberts.
He's not there at the moment. I did swap him out for Miles Bergman. I think if I was to rank Kircher through Roberts, so Kirch, Newman, Bergman, Roberts, I think I'd go Kirch, Newman, Bergman, depending on your risk appetite, then Roberts. Just because even though he had the role at the end of last year, I just think with everything I mentioned before with Darcy Parish coming back into the side, McGrath probably coming back into defense, Redmond still there, is probably a year too early for Roberts. But if he does sort of, you see him being that distributor out of defense in preseason, then I could well and truly be back on.
Like it, mate. A young gun.
Same with Sam Banks. Sam Banks is the exact same thing. Yeah.
We will get to Sam Banks very, very soon. And but under 22 GDS comp, make sure that you do get yourself an Archie Roberts. We've talked about Kitty, we've talked about Jasper, and we've talked about my man, the Pepsi Max King. Probably familiar with the last two. Just need to see exactly how we're structuring up, and will there be enough pie to share around? And this is where we see Sammy Banks. What do you think, mate?
Yeah, look, I think I've been the number one cheerleader for Sammy Banks for, let's say, a year now. I think he could become sort of a premium option. The thing is, right, one of Bergman, Banks, Kirch, Roberts is going to be, I think, the Lockie Ash of last year. It's just you've got one dart to hit four targets. Which target are you going to hit?
Who's going to be the Perryman?
Who's going to be the Perryman and the Roberts, and who's going to be the Ash? Because I will say, this time last year, Lockie Ash was not being touted as a Supercoach pick.
Nope.
And that's where I think that Sam Banks is that type of player. No one is talking about him. And we probably wouldn't be talking about him if I wasn't sprouting his name every 10 seconds, saying how much of a good player he is either. So potentially Sam Banks could be that player. It does rely on Jaden Short. Like the way GWS use the ball with Ash and Whitfield is not the same as how Richmond use the ball with Short and Banks, because GWS use their halfbacks so much. Richmond really don't and never have. Like, that's why Short never averaged 100, even when he was the main distributor. If you carry that through, in what world would you see Sam Banks averaging 100? That's what my hesitancy is there to go with Banks. But it wouldn't surprise me if he is the guy that Richmond used this year.
Love it, mate. We've got Bergman there and Newman, who we've already touched on already. We'll keep moving on. McKercher is another man we've already touched on. Very, very highly owned. Into the mid-price watch list, we've talked about Young, we've talked about Parrish, but someone that we haven't touched on yet, mate, is young Harvey Langford, 384,700, a phenomenal debut year. Obviously, midfield minutes up for grabs, and we're expecting he's going to be one of the ones to take up that opportunity. At the price, do you see a world where he could be a decent selection, or potentially not enough meat on the bone here?
He was in my first team pick aside. I've just called on him a little bit, just simply because I want to see what the Melbourne midfield mix looks like. Steele and Viney are very similar players. But if they don't play in the midfield, where do both of them play? And that's the concern for me, is if you've got those two in there, you've got Cozzy in there, you've got Trent Rivers, who should go in there, and Harvey Langford. What does the split for the non-Steele Viney minutes look like? And they should be prioritizing Langford. I just think in the Stephen King midfields of years gone by, with Gold Coast before Dimmer got there, with Geelong last year, they don't rely on one guy to get the job done. And I think that's the issue with Langford, is we can't really compare Langford's second season with Oliver's second season all those years back, because we're comparing apples and oranges, in that Langford is in a different regime, in a different climate, and he's a different type of player. So want to see it before I sort of go ahead with him. Where do you stand on Langford, mate?
Absolutely agree with everything that you said. Yep, can't really add anything there. I don't think it's a matter of if he breaks out, it's just when. We know he's got the talent there. I think he's going to be an absolute superstar. I'm a huge fan of him. But it is tough to do in your second year. Not many players are able to do that. He could, but I'd much prefer spending $5K more on a Hayden Young or else going down to Darcy Parish.
Exactly. So the way that I see it is you've got a potential 600K guy in Hayden Young. What is the best case outcome for Harvey Langford? He averages 100 and he gets to 500K. Like, that's a good outcome, but you could have the outcome with the other two on this image.
Yep, agree, mate.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next slide. And we haven't touched on these three blokes yet. We've got Harley Reid at 381,700, Georgie Boy Wardlaw at just under 400,000, and Tanner Bruin at 276,800, hoping to get back into the side and play some football this year. None of these blokes have entered my side so far. Do you have any interest? I suppose for me, Harley Reid, my main concern with Reid is all the attention that he's going to get, because I think he's probably their best midfielder. So he'll cop a bit of attention from time to time. Wardlaw, I think his game's built for Supercoach. Main concern for me is durability. Will be able to actually stay on the park. And Tanner is at an awkward type price. Need to be really confident about what his role is going to be heading into the season. But what are your quick thoughts on any of these three, mate?
Yeah, I guess with Reid and Wardlaw, they're both going to get there. It's just with Wardlaw, it's really tricky because he's a points per machine magnet, points per minute magnet. But now with 5 on the bench as well, he'll probably never get to 80% time on ground, which is probably what he needs to be, that uber midfielder. Like you saw with Clayton Oliver's second year, that's what we thought that Wardlaw could take. But that's the issue with Wardlaw is I just don't think that his game style is conducive to him playing enough minutes to be a really good Supercoach player, which is what he probably needs around the 400K mark. Similar with Harley is if he can't get those free kicks against out of his system, he's going to really struggle to really max out his scoring. And then with Bruin, I'm going to admit that I probably haven't really paid too much attention to him. I think there was one year, I can't remember exactly which year it was. I think it was 2023, where he was underpriced. Yeah, he was coming in at 311K. And we started him because he just came across from GWS. We were saying, he's going to play in the midfield. The Geelong midfield has got a lot better since then as well. So I'm going to just bring up his stats from that year. So I remember he played us quite early on. Yeah, so his first 3 games were 58, 46, 54. He was dropped. And then he came for 50, 54, 72, 50, 77, 79. And he did end the year okay. And he's priced cheaper now. But when you got Holmes and Spaz in there, you got Atkins, you bring across Warple, you're going to try to get Myers some minutes. Where does Bruin fit into all of this? And at 277K, I'd much rather go down to a Dyson Sharp, a CQ, and Sam Grill rather than pay up 277K for Bruin. I'd even prefer probably to go up to a Harley Reid than to go for Bruin because I know what Reid's role will look like in that team. Great
point. Uncertainty of role at 276,000. Nah.
Never done it before.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. And just 3 here, I don't think Cogs is going to be too relevant at 321,000. There's been a little bit of talk about Jai Cully, but again, similar to the Langford discussion, where on earth does this bloke actually fit? I'm not too sure. But the other bloke here, we did touch on Connor McDonald, is Cam McKenzie. There is opportunity there, but are you a little bit similar in the fact, maybe to a Melbourne team where you're just not sure about what the mix is going to look like with your McDonalds, your McKenzies, your Wards and co?
Yeah, I think that's it. Like Newcomb's a lock in there. Nash is probably a lock by necessity. Ward took the step up last year. Then you've got McKenzie, you've got Weddle, you've got McDonald. Like, I just want to see what it looks like. And again, it comes back to Hayden Young. He's the perfect sort of barometer for all of these players. Because I'd rather pay 26K more K for Hayden Young than I would for Cam McKenzie. And McKenzie's got the buy. Cully's, it feels like Melbourne are building up a hype train for him. Like that's how much they're really fueling this narrative that Cully is like the second ruck. He's their best midfielder. He might just be the best player in the league at this point. Like, that's how they're hyping him up. But I think, again, we just need to see it. There's a reason that West Coast delisted him. I think we need to come back to that point. Like, yes, West Coast makes some stupid decisions, but if they go about delisting a superstar, then that's a fireable offense. So let's just cool our jets, I think, on Cully and see how he actually looks in the preseason games. And even if we jump onto him because one of your other mid prices fall over, like a Parish, for instance, that's almost like the perfect parachute. You start with the Parish, the high upside, and if Cully's the one that starts off strong, he gets the role, then you can jump to him.
That's a great way to look at it, mate.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of an exit plan from another failed mid-pricer, because he is at that price where he's less than the other ones that we've discussed so far, mate. On to the forwards now. We've discussed the first two in great length, Flanders and Treloar. We know the pros, we know the cons. Darcy Wilson at 335, for me, the price is just way, way, way too awkward. Do you have any interest, mate, or just turn the page?
There is some word that he could be playing off of halfback. Now, I feel like every single Saints player has been touted to play at halfback as well. So, again, tread with caution, see how it looks. But if he's playing off halfback, potentially, but we always fall into this trap of the up forward play, going back to halfback, 330K. I'm just thinking Ollie Hollands last year, Dylan Shield, like these blokes, you're probably not going to get much out of a preseason game or practice game from them. So it is a risk to take. I just think there are better players that you can go at that price. Like, I'd prefer to pay up to get a Petrarca. I prefer even probably to get a Myers type, or just to go completely down and get whichever rookies are available.
Yep, agree. Particularly that first buy. So many other GWS and St Kilda players I'd actually have in front of Darcy Wilson as well. Then we get to an interesting selection, Connor Buderick. Now, 245,700, obviously moved to the Dogs. Now, we're not expecting him to necessarily be in an overly attacking type role. We've obviously got Bailey Dale down there that does that. But at under 250K, we know that Carmichael's injured at the moment. If he plays round one, do you think he's a realistic option for us? Or given the fact we've got Kitty Coleman at just under his price, we just go there?
Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go with Kitty. With Buderick, he did get some good scores as a Gold Coast defender in his rookie year. I remember he was starting at a very weird price, like 107 or 6K or something random like that. 246K, he should have good job security, but I think that's the only thing going for him at the moment. You've got Daly, you've got Bramble there. He's probably third in line for the distributor role. He is probably going to take up some minutes that Jason Johannesson would have left behind. I think he's retired now, but just not for me. And with Kerno Draper, we talked about them, but I didn't realize. I thought Kerno was 277K. That's why I brought him up. If 377K is a no-go for me, even if he's with the Jezza type, how many goals does he have to score to keep chugging out money each week? We've seen Kerno fall to these kinds of prices in years past and then just burnt us completely. I think I'd rather see it before jumping on him.
Yeah, I think we save Kerno for GDS when he has a really nice matchup against the West Coast.
When he plays Carlton.
Maybe when he plays Carlton, then absolutely jump on him, mate. Get the diamond tapping for Charlie Curnow. And you're right, mate. We've already talked about Sammy Draper there as well. To go, we've talked about Layla, we've touched on. Brent Daniels at 300K. Is it about role? We just really don't know what's happening there. I'm sure we've spent a little bit of time through the midfield, probably through the half forward line as well. Do you need to just see him in the midfield for you to select him, mate?
I'm going to say this it's interesting. I don't know what I need to see from Brent Daniels to pick him. He goes into the midfield, sure, but he's never been a big ball winner. He's probably a score involvements guy. 300K, again, it's just such an awkward price range. I think unless he's playing inside mid, like a Toby Bedford type inside mid where he's getting bulk CBAs, and I see that he's injury-free, can stay fit. Comparing these three, it's almost a situation of I don't see reason why I would pick any of them, but I'd probably go Daniels, Lawler, then Degoe. Like very bottom of the barrel kind of picks. Compare that with the last slide. I think Drape and even Kerno probably have Kerno neck and neck with like these blokes. Drape is the player that I think has the most upside of them all. Daniels could have the upside he plays in the midfield, but I'm not too sort of sold on any of them really.
Yep, I agree.
What do you think? Where do you stand?
Oh, pretty much the same as you. Yeah, I just don't have any interest in these guys here. I think it's you look at your Drapers, you look at maybe your Trelaw types, or else you just go right up or down to someone like a Jamara. Here's this guy, Con McDonald, we talked about. Now, 381,100.
It's a lot.
That is dang awkward and a lot for, well, given the fact that we haven't really seen a lot from him. I think we're looking at potential role here and his potential as a player. I really rate him as a player, but it is an awkward price at 381, but a huge watch for me, mate. A huge watch. Same as Jamara at 214,100. And then the last bloke that we've got here is Jolie Freya, 428,700. Is a mid forward. Now, is this just a matter of we don't know what his mid clock is going to be? And 428,000 is just a little bit too much when we've got these question marks?
Yeah. Again, he's another one of those players where he probably has value in him. But until the Bulldogs midfield rotation clears up, you can't go there. Like, there's no world you can pick both Fraser and Trelaw. You're banking one or the other. You know what I mean? Like, you're banking on Trelaw getting the midfield minutes or you're banking on Fraser getting the midfield minutes. And if it goes one way or the other, then sure. But I think there are much more secure midfield minutes amongst the forwards that we could be picking from. Like, you could probably pick Cozzy and get more consistent scoring than Fraser. And that's just the way it goes. Like, I remember at the start of last year when he started really well, played the Collingwood game, and he probably got gifted a little bit. He kicked that crucial goal and went up like 40 points. Sorry. But if it wasn't for the 40, he'd probably have scored quite poorly. He was papering over the cracks. But then the cracks showed because apart from that Sydney game where I think he had like 25 and 4, and he really dominated that game, he didn't have too many other standout games. Again, a really good game day squad selection as an under 22 player, but I just think there's going to be better players. I think the forward line, apart from Draper, is the line where you're probably going to go premiums and rookies.
Yes.
And tinker with the mid prices in the defenders and the midfielders.
Yep. And tell you what, mate, the best thing about talking about any of these doggies is the fact that we are getting on the channel here, and he is contributing to our guide, the great Matty Lyons, the best #1 track watcher that the doggies have in the game. He's been sending me through some little match sim notes and some training notes as well. And he's going to come on the channel to dissect every single one of these relevant doggies picks, mate. So after Matty comes on, we'll have no more questions. We'll just have answers, I think, brother. Now, very quickly, before we finish off with a little bit of buy talk, I think this is really important to keep in mind when we are looking to select our mid prices. We've gone through 40 odd names, I reckon there, mate, but this is a bit of a 2025 mid price review. I put a video out focusing on the defenders yesterday, but I was looking last night and put some data together for our mid price midfielders. Now, I've got a couple of question marks here because I need to get your opinion. But for the defenders, I've got Roberts as a pass. I've got Perryman as an absolute disaster. Short, SDK, and Freya last year as fails. And some people may disagree with Freya, depending on how you played him. And obviously, Lockie Ash, you talked about it before, a huge win. Got up to 572,000 in round 7 and was the 5th highest averaging defender last year. So an absolute freak, mate. We go to the midfielders there. We've got Oliver Day, Callaghan, your boy, our boy, I will say this year, my boy Ashcroft, Adam Chera, Peatling, and your boy Ollie Hollins. Now, looking at the pass fail sections there, would you disagree with any that I've got there in the midfield? Because there was a couple that I just wasn't quite sure, particularly with Ashcroft and Shearer. I think with a lot of our mid prices, what we've got to ask ourselves is, are we purchasing them as a cash cow, as a bit of a filler and then a late upgrade, or as a potential keeper? Timing is everything as well. When you look at Adam Chera for selection as example, it was all about the timing. If
Yeah.
you left it, you run too late or you went too early, I think it was a fail. But if you time that run absolutely perfectly, then, and I think without getting a big head about it, I think I managed to do that pretty well with Adam Chera, then I think it was a bit of a win. So what are your quick thoughts here, mate, with the mid-price review situation?
Yeah, I agree. I think with Chera, he was a win because it delayed the need to upgrade his position. And I think when at the core, the role of a mid-pricer is to delay the change of the mid-pricer in your team until all your rookies are taken off the field. And Chera did that to a T. You could say the same for Ashcroft. And it's a bit funny, and I don't have the ownership percentage numbers on me, but I think you've got 31% started Callaghan, but I reckon that number dropped at around round 4. And you could say that this was a fail as equally as you could say that was a win. Because if you held him throughout the whole season, this is the biggest win. But if you traded off him, like you would say there, you would call, in your mind, Finn Callaghan was a failed pick.
For me, he was. Yeah. For me, he was. Yeah. And it's hard because it's very team dependent, isn't it? When you look at the fails and the wins, what was a fail for me might not have been for you if you used the pick differently.
Yeah. And equally, like a player like Will Day, he was probably a disaster, I would say, because the coaches that got on him, if he didn't start him, would have traded into a player that got injured a couple of weeks later. Like, that's a disaster. So it goes both ways. I think like an Ashcroft is probably a pass because he was, I can't remember exactly what it was. He had good stretches and he had mediocre stretches. Sam DeConning similarly was probably a disaster as well because you got on him because you saw he was going to be the number 1 ruck for Geelong, and then he became a key defender and you just couldn't do anything with him. So some wins, some losses. I guess the moral of the story here, though, right, DA, is for every Lockie Ash or for every Finn Callaghan, there is a who's the worst of this mix. There's a Harry Perriman and there's a Will Day. So you can't win them all.
That's right, and that's why it's so difficult to nail these mid-price picks, isn't it? From the fallen keepers, from the fallen premiums to your breakout options, it is not an easy process. And the other thing that really stands out to me is when I was looking at my side, mid-price, mid, and I thought I'm probably really overdoing it here. I need to maybe scale back on a couple and try to fix things up a little bit. And also durability risk. If you look at some of the cheaper options that we've got, they do come with risk, like your Drapers, your Trelaws, your Parishes, your Youngs. So I think it's also a matter of balancing that risk within your side as well. I don't see a word where you can run with all of these guys because statistics and probability would probably suggest that it's not going to turn out too well because at least a couple of them are more likely than not to go down at some stage.
Yeah. Sweet. Finally, some buy talk.
Well, we've got 10 teams, mate, that have the double buy. So obviously any of the teams that you see in block 1 do have the double. That's Brisbane, Carlton, Collingwood, Geelong, the Dogs, Sydney, Hawthorn, Gold Coast, the Giants, and St Kilda. And then we've also got the block 2 buys that go from rounds 12 up to 16. To make it easy as well, I've just put a green dot on those teams that only have the single buy as well. Mate, one thing I just want to quickly go to is round 12.
Yes.
Because when I'm selecting my starting side, I'm looking to round 12 and I'm thinking I'm already stuffed, let alone if I trade in some of these players during the season, you know. What are you thinking round 12 is going to be like for you at this stage? An absolute disaster?
Yes, well, North and Port Adelaide to start off with Sheasel, Cherry, the Port boys. But let me put it to you this way. If you don't start the Port boys and they start off well, you're going to be trading into players that are closer to the buy that share a bad buy. So with the Butters, Butters is the perfect example we were talking about before. So if you're Butters and you got the perfect stretch until round 6, then you got Geelong, and then you've got a buy in 4 rounds. So he's probably going to bottom out in round 9. You're already struggling for round 12. Are you really going to be able to get Butters at his lowest point? Hypothetically, this is all hypothetical, right? 3 weeks before his buy, knowing he's on a tough buy. And that's where I think it's just better to start with him and cop it when it happens. Like, he doesn't have a second bye. It's not like he's got this perfect run into the second bye. That's how I view it, personally, for Butters. And Gold Coast, similarly, like, yes, Petrarca and Gold Coast have the same bye there, but Gold Coast's fixture run, 2026 fixture. Sorry, I just don't have it on.
That's as I mentioned earlier, that's what the awkward thing is.
Melbourne.
Yeah.
West Coast, Richmond, Melbourne, Essendon in the first 6 rounds. Like, you want to have them rather than getting on them after the best fixtures are out of the way.
That's right. Because just looking at this graphic, I think what most people would do is look at round 12 and go, beautiful. Well, after the first bye, let's bring in all these Gold Coast players. And that would make sense if you're playing the bye schedule. But given the fact that they're really good matchups so early on in the season, do we really want to be jumping on these blokes once they're getting to those tougher matchups? So that's where I'm finding it really difficult to manage my Gold Coast situation in the starting side, mate. Extremely awkward for me.
I think a Savrong type and a Jordan Clark type, looking at this graphic, is mint as well. Round 14, you got Carlton. Not like, personally, I don't think there's much relevance, if at all, apart from Nick Newman and Jagger Smith. Collingwood, you got the Dacos boys. Hawthorn, you don't really have anyone. Freo, smooth sailing. Like, looking at that, yes, there's 4 teams in the bye, but really there's one team that's got relevance in Freo, and then players, like 1 to 2 players. It's not like a Brisbane or North Melbourne or Port Adelaide that's on that bye. So I think GWS and Fremantle, from those teams in 13 and 14, are teams to target. And equally, Nick Dacos, after the round 2 bye, which is very tough, I will say, Carlton, forget Carlton, Brisbane, Geelong, Collingwood. There's Supercoach relevance throughout those teams. After that bye, Dacos is a player that you want to get in at the earliest opportunity.
Well,
Dacoses, both the Dacoses.
What was he, just under 20% or just around the 20% mark, I think? You're right. Looking at that, it's not as bad as what I was viewing his fixture as, or bye fixture as, now that you bring that up, because it's not necessarily is sharing with 3 other sides. You've got to look at who the other sides are and what relevance you think those sides are actually going to hold, mate. So is there anything else that really...
Round 16, in our final teams, I'd imagine we'd want to have Baz, Gawn, Naz, one of the Saints rucks if they're forward, Sinclair, possibly
in
Myers,
Dale, maybe.
Dale.
There's relevance everywhere.
And then we have Flanders, who's probably going to be in there. That's 9 players, super relevant players. Holmes as well. I'll add Holmes into that mix, seeing if you can. 10 players that could possibly be in our final sides that have the last bye. And that is an awful situation if you don't already own those players, because you can't wait to get a bond until the bye is over, because the damage is probably already done by that point. Same goes for Gawn. So these are the types of players I feel you want to try to get before round 12, and then hope for like a Dawson after round 12 is probably the way to go. That sort of thing. Like, just thinking how it may look into this year.
The more and more that I look at this, the more and more locked Finn Callaghan is in my side. Yeah, I was going to say that round 13 bye just with Richmond is fantastic. And then he's going to be able to cover for particularly that round 15 and 16, as well as round 12 as well. Yeah. So he'll be there for all those tricky buys. And so, I really like the look of the Giants fixture, even though they do have the double bye. It's the best case scenario if you were to have the 2 buys, isn't it, mate?
Yeah. Like right now, I've got Flanders, Naz, and Callaghan on round 4, and it's fine. Everyone's going to have Flanders. Most people have Naz. Callahan's probably the pod there, but you can't have them all. Best 18. Hopefully the rookies can cover at least one of those scores. If you take a 20-point hit, that's okay, because you can make it back later in the season.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And remember, in the season guide, we have done a real deep dive. So we've got easy matchups, hard matchups. We've got a paragraph for each side outlining the early games where you might want to use particular players as a VC. We've even talked about the loop options for those teams that play a lot of Sunday games. So real deep dive fixture in the guide this year. And there we go again. If you want to pre-order it, use the promo code Swordplay to get 10% off. And the link will be in the description there as well. We've got so many great content creators that are contributing to this and looking very much forward, to our GOAT series that we've got coming up as well. People,
so excited.
This is all I'm going to say. People that have climbed Mount Everest, they've gone right to the top, mate. Right to the top. Let me tell you that. You can't get better than that. You can't get better.
Exactly. And it's not just going to be one part, a 3-part series. How good is that?
Looking forward to it, mate. I know that Spillsy is starting to organise some team previews. Spoken to the great George from Fantasy Take TV, as well as the great Shorty. They'll be coming on for the Adelaide and Geelong team previews very, very soon. As I said, I've just got in contact with the great Matty Lyons, who is the best of the best out of the Whitten Oval. So stay tuned for all of those video team previews, but even better, all the team previews in the article. That's where you get all the really good oil, brother. Mate, how good was it to get back together?
1 hour
again?
48. Jeez, we are so bad at this.
The plan was, and this was my fault. The plan was, I say, right, mate, we'll look at the top 10s. Just give a quick. Are they too highly owned? Not owned enough? Beautiful. We'll smash it out in 40 minutes. And it's almost been a couple of hours, mate. You need to start hosting these things because I just get on an absolute tangent, and can't help it, mate. I'm sorry. I just love talking Supercoach, mate.
It's great. Who doesn't? It is so good. We love it.
And it's going to be a massive season, brother. Massive season. All right, mate. How are you going to finish this off for the first preseason podcast of 2026, brother?
I say enjoy the time that you have with your loved ones, because when the footy season starts up, you may have to go to the couch a bit more. So take it easy, everyone. Hopefully team plan is going well. We're very excited about the season guide. So if you haven't pre-ordered yet, do so. Remember, our release date is going to be February 21st. But if you pre-order before February 14th, you'll get the entire team-by-team previews within the season guide in advance for you to peruse at your own speed before the whole guide is released as well.
How good is that? And a big shout out to all of the legends that have already put in a pre-order. Tell you what, going very, very well, mate. So thanks again, guys, for joining us. All the best. Much love. And we'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, bye.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, guys. It's George Hewitt here.